This video is going to cover the notes that we do for the unit that involves the Persian Empire, which is a very large empire at the same time as some of the other empires are beginning to arise after the River Valley civilizations. So the Persian Empire becomes built through Mesopotamia and Central and Southwest Asia. There are several Mesopotamian civilizations that come up, including, we talked a little bit about Sumer with cuneiform, Babylon, and there's going to be groups like the Assyrians. There are several different empires that arise throughout the Middle East. The Persians are the ones that the state of Virginia structured for the SOLs to follow, so that's the one that we're going to cover. And also they play a fairly important role in Greek history, which we will also talk about. The Persians themselves are going to be a fairly long-lasting empire that also is known for being very tolerant, which is very strange. We've talked about the Jewish populations and how they were enslaved by the Egyptians and exiled by the Babylonians. There's sort of horrible things that happen with these governments in the Middle East and Northern Africa, and the Persians are going to balk against that and be much more tolerant. This map obviously shows you a portion of today's Middle East, right? You have northern Egypt, you have most of the Arabian Peninsula and the Persian Gulf, you have all the way to the Indus River with Pakistan, right? And you have north into southern Europe. Now, if I start with the former Assyrian Empire, everything that's in peach is what the Assyrians controlled for several centuries in the 11 to 600s BCE. Now the Persians are going to begin under Cyrus the Great. The Persian Empire is going to begin under Cyrus the Great. And he controls a large chunk of it. If you compare it to the Assyrians, he doesn't have Egypt along the Nile, but he does have much more control over Anatolia and all of this Iranian section of the Middle East. Now, Cyrus was in control for, about 20, 30 years. Cambyses comes immediately thereafter, and Cambyses is going to add in the conquests of the Nile River. Imagine the trade they pick up by controlling the trade along the Nile. Then you have Darius, who's going to come in immediately afterwards, and he picks up a further expanse of Egypt and northern Africa, but also he picks up southern Macedonia, southern Greece, and as well as some of the areas along the Caucasus. So that's a pretty large chunk that he's going to add also because it's more populated and also gives you more control. I mean, they control nearly the entire Black Sea and the southern half of the Caspian, so they have a lot more trade control under Darius. Now, one of the things that we're going to talk about is how the Persians built the Royal Road. So the Royal Road is going to connect Susa with Sardis, and it's going to run straight through the heart of the Persian Empire. And so just when we go back to the Royal Road, we'll talk a little bit about exactly what that does. All right. So we talked already about Cyrus and how he was the first, emperor of Persia. There's a difference between a civilization and an empire. Under an empire, your governmental structure doesn't just encompass your culture, but begins to take over the lands of other different cultures, other different areas. And so Cyrus is responsible for that. And so he's one of the first Persian empires to keep going past what was traditionally Persia. And he put in the foothold of tolerance. Now, ancient civilizations nearly always, when they conquered an area, would then enslave those opposed to their government. And it was sort of a way of suppressing the culture of those that you conquered and preventing rebellions. And so by enslaving populations, especially the ones that were actively rebelling against you that you didn't put immediately to death, they weren't able ever to revolt against you because you had them spread throughout your empire. Well, he was like, no, let's not do that. Let's be much more tolerant. They should be able to practice their own beliefs. They should be able to maintain their culture. They should be able to maintain their identity. They just need to pay taxes and follow the rules of the Persian Empire. He brings the Jews who had been exiled back into Israel and says, this is your homeland, this is the land of your forefathers, this is where you believe your homeland is, come back and live in this area, but remember to still pay taxes to your government. So he's a very popular ruler for the time frame. His successor, Cambyses, is going to take that same concept and expand it. Like, we're going to keep getting bigger, we're going to keep taking people over. But he sort of missed the deal about being tolerant and being respectful, and is really hated because he's known for destroying Egyptian temples. These beautiful areas that were very ornate and very elaborate and odes to the gods, and he just destroyed them because they didn't believe in the same gods. And as a result, essentially, especially all through Egypt, people rebelled really highly during his the uproar after his death, because they didn't want to follow this Persian concept of hatred. And I don't think anybody would blame them for that. Now Darius, he's going to arise as a military soldier. There's a scuffle of revolts in the wake of Cambyses' reign, where several different people were vying for the throne, and Darius is the one who emerges from this turmoil. He led an army called the 10,000 Immortals. Not that they were immortal, nor that there was necessarily 10,000 of them. At points there are less, and at points there are significantly more, but that's what they were called, were the 10,000 Immortals. And under his leadership, they were able to successfully squash several rebellions, Egyptian included, and he makes the empire massive. He takes over more of Egypt, he takes over more of Southern Europe, and he takes over all the way through to India at sort of the Indus River where Pakistan is, making his empire 2,500 miles long, which is a really long distance, because even in today's world, if you're thinking about a map of today, if you got in a vehicle at Franklin County High School and you drove to Baylor University in Waco, Texas, and you turned around and you came all the way back to Franklin County High School, you still would not have driven the length of the Persian Empire. It's massive. So Darius implements into his empire a bureaucratic system similar to what we'll talk about with the Chinese and what we'll talk about with the Gupta and the Mauryans, where they have a government system where different people are given specific jobs. We have a bureaucracy in today's world where our government is divided not just into 3 branches, but into departments, where you have Homeland Security, and you have Agriculture, and you have Defense, and you have the different agencies within it, like the Transportation Department, and you have the CIA, and you have the FBI, and you have the various organizations in control of national parks. Those are all part of the bureaucracy. So you take your government and you split it into little bitty sections. So what he does is he divides his government into sections, and then he also divides his country into what they call satraps. So you had royal governors governing little satrap areas, and they were sort of like states. They were provinces within the Persian government. So by taking your massive 2,500 mile across empire and you split it into little mini provinces, each who had a governor, who each reported to people in directly to you, it's dividing and conquering. It's making sure that your government can continue to run efficiently while not having to be in all places at one time. Within his government, he made sure that they had freedom of religion. And in areas where they had taken over past the Persian Empire under Cyrus, they allowed for local language and local laws so long as they still fit within the Persian framework. So you maintained regional identity and regional strength while maintaining allegiance to the Persian government. It's a really effective system. It's a really nice system, and more enlightened European countries really should have looked to the Persians for how to build their own governments, because when they were taking over colonies, they ignored most of these precedences set by the Persians and ended up with a lot of rebellions. So one of the things we talked about is that we would talk about the Royal Road, and it's built under Darius's rule in order to not just unite the empire, but be able to move troops quickly from one region to another. So they actually build in a road network in order to get across the Persian Empire. They also have a different form of religion, and it's very interesting. It's very different from sort of what you're accustomed to. So it is founded by a man named Zoroaster in the 6th century BC. And it was a monotheistic religion, just like Judaism, just like Christianity and Islam will come to be. But it's more violent in practice. The concept is that in your individual life, you will be asked to battle between good and evil. And so everything that you do, every action that you take should be in the name of good and in the name of God. And as you're fighting wars and expanding empires, you were expanding and fighting for good, which sort of is a religious way of justifying taking over a region. But at the end of your days, when you die and you have your judgment day in Zoroastrianism, you will be judged on how much you fought for good over evil. So that's it. That's the extent of the notes on the Persian Empire. Make sure that you have them all filled out in your packet because I will be checking those as a homework grade. And again, email me with any questions.